Show starts in 1 minute.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Yeah, let's do the movie first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get it out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have some news, but we'll skim through
We
that
haven't
really
done
quick.
news.
We
in
have
like
not
3
done
weeks.
news in quite some time, I know. So we're just going to hit on some talking points. We can either discuss them or just discard them and move on.
Well, let's see what they are.
Let's see what they are
okay.
before we discard. Yeah.
Has Jeff brought his A game? First of all, welcome everybody who's actually listening to us. We are deep into November now, so exciting stuff coming up. Jim, we got monster movies coming, but we'll get there. All right, let's start with some news, and then we'll get into our two features. So first and foremost, Johnny Depp has been forced off Fantastic Beasts sequel.
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised by this news.
I guess not. Apparently, it stems from the fact that he lost that libel case against the British tabloid that he was a wife beater, and so repercussions are now coming down. The studio has asked him to step aside, and rumor has it that Mads Mikkelsen may be taking over that role.
I think they could do that pretty easily because it's already established that this is a shape-shifting
You're
character.
correct, right?
Yeah, so because Colin Farrell played the character in the first film, so it's not a big deal. They can just switch to another actor and move on. So I just think it, at this point, it's such a liability. That's not the liability that they want on a family film.
No.
Right, but interestingly enough, they are keeping Amber Heard in Aquaman 2. So,
which is kind of crazy if you followed the case at all, and I didn't follow it completely, but there were definitely allegations against her as well. So it seemed like they had a very screwed up relationship, and I'm not qualified to comment on that.
And I don't think just from the things that I read, I wouldn't want to comment on it or bring it into this quote unquote family friendly podcast.
If you want to go check it out, dig deeper. But yeah, that is kind of interesting.
I would have liked to have seen consequences for her as well. Just again, like apply the standard evenly, but whatever. Not my decision.
No, it's not. He'll find work. Someone will hire him again. Listen,
he's already talking with Tim Burton about a sequel to Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I don't know what he's going to play, but yeah, that's what I heard.
He's not playing Beetlejuice. You better get out of there. All right, let's move on. Oscar Isaac is in talks to play Moon Knight for the Disney Plus series.
Now, a lot of people just cast off Moon Knight as Marvel's answer to Batman.
But he's not, though. First of all, you got issues if you're running around at nighttime in a stark white suit. So right there, you're
not inconspicuous.
It's a ghost. But I don't know. He's already he was Apocalypse in the X-Men. He's obviously Poe Dameron in the Star Wars universe, and now he's and he played Spider-Man. He did the voice of Spider-Man 2099 at the end of Into the Spider-Verse.
Did he? Was that an Easter egg? Was he credited for that?
I don't know if he was credited or not, but he did do the voice. I've heard rumblings that he's not Jewish enough, and I'm like, what? Because isn't Mark Spector the character who is Moon Knight? Isn't he suffer from like multiple personality disorders or something?
Yeah, remember
my Moon Knight lore.
But I loved that run. I loved the character of Moon Knight. It was one of my favorite books to collect.
Yeah, I never collected it myself, but I always read it from my friend John. He always. So, anyways, that's interesting. I like him. He's very mercurial. I think he can kind of play different stuff. So, we'll see if that pans out.
Yeah.
We are going to be talking Mandalorian, but apparently there's big buzz now about this Boba Fett series ramping up.
Yeah, but I haven't seen anything from like a confirmed source.
It's surprising that all these other third parties have all this info, but we have not seen something official.
But
yet.
What are you going to get that's going to be any different than what we're getting in the Mandalorian right now?
I mean, maybe we could find out what happened to Boba Fett between
the
time he crawled out of the Sarlacc.
Yeah, no, we'll get 8 episodes of Boba Fett in the Sarlacc pit. The 8 levels of the Sarlacc pit.
Every third episode, a Gamorrean guard will drop in or something. Yeah, I guess we're going to take this one with a huge grain of salt. Because I haven't been unable to find any.
If they did a prequel, like, Boba Fett's adventures as a bounty hunter.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're going to, I don't know. All right.
Seems like they could have just, folded that story into the second episode of The Mandalorian, but what the heck do I know?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're only 3 episodes in. We could very well return to Tatooine for a 4th time.
Thinking about this prequel, The Simpsons, how Maggie has that baby from across the street that she's adversarial with the unibrow.
Yeah.
It would be, I think Bosk could play the same role in a Boba Fett prequel. Oh, Bosk, you got me again.
Spy versus spy. Bounty hunter versus bounty hunter. All right, let's move on. Ken Spears, co-creator of Scooby-Doo. Died at 82.
Yeah.
Anybody, our age doesn't know Hanna-Barbera, but these 2 names, Ken Spears and Joe Ruby, were partners who pretty much established 90% of Hanna-Barbera's run. Not only Scooby-Doo, but we got Dynamite, Jabberjaw, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Thundar the Barbarian. So sad, but it looks like he lived a good life. 82. Got a nice little legacy. So sorry to hear that. And then the only other news item I have which I think Jim shared with the 3 of us last night. And I find this very intriguing, is this Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, kabuki stage play.
Yeah.
That was it's a 6-hour event.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no clue, but apparently it only ran for a couple of weeks before everything shut down last year. But it's now available on Blu-ray and DVD.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And
it's like the ring cycle of kabuki theater.
It looks
6 hours.
There's a trailer that's attached to that article.
I only saw the one picture, but
with the Ohm,
like almost a full-size Ohm on stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 2-disc Blu-ray will set you back $114, which I guess people may balk at, but I've paid more for that than comic book in the
Can you get it in the US? Weeks. Can you get it?
It looks like it looks like it's not only being distributed by Disney, but it is on Amazon. So you can get a 4-disc DVD or a 2-disc Blu-ray. And it's 6 hours and 3 minutes. And it's not even the full manga. It's not the full story, but it's obviously much longer than the animated movie. It looks exciting. So if anybody's a fan of this, we actually we reviewed this movie, and again, the stage production value looks phenomenal.
Yeah, it does. It looks really good.
Well, maybe we'll share that on Facebook and go check it out.
Yeah.
And that is my super hyper speed news, and we are out.
Well, I have one news item.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
Because I just read this yesterday, and I'm feeling appalled and angry at the possibility that this might happen. But there is a rumor that Warner is going to pull Wonder Woman 84 from the theatrical release schedule and send it to HBO Max.
What?
No.
Yes.
No.
That would be so terrible. But first of all, because again, it just seems like you're leaving money on the table. Like
they're leaving tons.
If anything, we thought they would take advantage of the open Thanksgiving weekend and bump it back, but I mean, bump it up.
Especially now with the rising COVID cases, like it really looks like they should have kept their like every studio should have released stuff over the summer when cases were lower, and then
because we knew it was going to spike again in the fall.
Right,
that was telegraphed.
Well, that's if you believe the scientists.
Warner's apparently mulling over what they're going to do. If they're either going to leave it on December, that looks unlikely, based on, again, rising cases across the country, or if they're going to move it to June, where something else would get bumped, or July of next year. But definitely one of the options that was on the table was to move it to HBO Max, which is just infuriating because I'm not going to get HBO Max
just for the
just to watch one movie.
They if they were smart, they would launch it on multiple platforms. Put it on HBO Max for the diehards who already have it because they're waiting for that damn Justice League.
Right. And I'm waiting for Roku because that's what I have. That's how I watch Shudder and Amazon and Netflix and all these things. And Roku and HBO Max are still at odds contractually.
So you can't even get it.
So, and I was reading this article that HBO Max, there's, I don't know how many millions of Roku users that are out there, but there are millions of them. And they're already HBO Max is already leaving that money on the table by not making it available to Roku users, of which I am one. And to Christina's point, Wonder Woman in itself is going to be leaving money on the table. If everybody in America had HBO Max, which they do not even close. I'm sure they're going to charge a premium fee on top of your HBO Max subscription.
Yeah.
And the thing is that one of the things in the article that I read, this article I think was in Hollywood Reporter, was that one of the reasons why they were considering this option is to shore up HBO Max because they haven't gotten the subscriber numbers that they want. Yeah. Well, frankly, if you're leaving out a huge segment of the population, like Roku users, then that could be a reason why. But also because there's just too many streaming services now.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to. I already subscribe to 5 streaming services. Yeah. 2 of them are anime services because we have a problem in this household. But
you should seek therapy.
They have more than one anime service, specifically.
Crunchyroll.
But we have Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll is it has a premium membership.
Oh, gotcha.
So you watch commercials and stuff.
Okay.
And then
see, you can't even sit through the commercials. Nope.
And then there's Funimation, which there's some crossover between what's on both of those services, but there's some stuff that's only available on Funimation, and there's some stuff that's only available on Crunchyroll.
Yeah. Listen, we're living in a world now where we're complaining that there's too many options.
Mm.
But because there's so many options, who's going to go and get an HBO Max subscription just to watch? I mean, I got angry at HBO Max already because The Witches ended up there. The Roald Dahl adaptation, that was one of my favorite books as a kid.
I heard it was creepy as hell.
It was one of my son's favorites. We were looking forward to the theatrical release, and then suddenly it's like exclusively on HBO Max.
Yeah, that's what they're all going to do. They're all fighting for content. Just like these people who went out of their way to. I agree with you. So they need to create a service where you get to pick and choose your streamers, just like cable. I'm right back where we started from.
Mm.
Well, that's disheartening if that is true, but I guess
I hope it's not true.
We'll stay on track and keep up to date on that one. Wow. Jim, news?
No.
Nothing? Nada?
I stopped with my news because none of it turns out to be true.
You're like the boy that cried wolf.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on then.
All right. Well, this week we're doing another new movie.
It is a new movie.
And this was not meant to be like so many movies that we're seeing now on demand. It wasn't meant always to be an on-demand film. This was produced by Paramount, and I'm talking about Love and Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
It was meant to be a theatrical release until the world changed. Although I think something like this might be serviced better on demand than it would be in theaters.
Yeah. Because I don't remember hearing anything about it. I don't remember seeing trailers for this, and it just magically showed up one day, either on Facebook or one of my other threads as an Amazon Prime.
Because you don't have, an all-star cast either. I think Michael Rooker is the biggest name in the cast. And that's pretty big for genre fans. But he's not a main player. He is just kind of like comes and goes.
Yep.
But yeah, the cast is likable. But, if you don't have that name brand recognition factor, it would have had a tough time if we never had COVID and it just opened in theaters. And it was planned to open in early 2020 when all those movies were coming out that we still haven't seen yet. Yeah, it would have gotten lost.
So Amazon Prime, we all paid $19.95 for it. So let's get into it, and we'll see whether or not it was worth the price.
Yeah, tongue-in-cheek, Love and Monsters is an end-of-the-world movie. We've got a lot of those lately.
Yeah.
The setup is an asteroid is coming to Earth, and if you look at some of the headlines, this maybe is not far from the truth.
No.
This could be in our future.
It is.
Maybe not in our lifetimes, but our children.
I don't know. We're overdue,
children,
man.
Yeah.
We are long overdue.
The nations of the world team up. They come up with a plan to destroy the asteroid.
This sounds like the most far-fetched part of this whole movie.
So you mean international cooperation?
That the world gets together and they all agree. Yeah.
So they all shoot their missiles at it and blow it up. And so this is an animated overview in the very beginning.
This opening that sets up the world is brilliant. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, but there's a side effect. People only are celebrating for what seems a matter of days until they realize that the chemical fallout or nuclear fallout or some kind of fallout from the missiles causing every cold-blooded animal to mutate and grow large, which is equally devastating to the Earth's population. Maybe less so. With an asteroid, is probably you'd kill everybody, but there's at least survivors here in this world. But most of the human population is wiped out by these giant monsters. And we're talking about insects and reptilian like frogs, and they mutate. They not only grow big, but they mutate. So they're only slightly recognizable as their old forms when you see them in this film. And we are given this little bit of plot point that there are colonies. Right in the beginning of the movie, it's established that some of humanity has gone underground or they're living in remote places where they're surviving and either killing or avoiding these giant monsters. The main character of Joel is one of these survivors, and he is living in an underground bunker with some people that have found him. We learn a bit later on that he was with his parents and who were unfortunately killed as they were trying to escape the madness. And he hooked up with this other group of young people, more survivally minded than he is. Even after years, he hasn't really gotten the hang of this apocalypse thing, as has Joel. He reminded me a lot of Flyboy, actually, from Dawn of the Dead. He's kind of a liability to the group that he's with.
He makes minestrone, though.
He does. That's pointed out many times.
Well, what's funny is that, we've talked about this, any one of us, dealing in a real world zombie apocalypse, and I would be like the first to die. Like, I am Joel. Like, I would be the guy that would be stuck back home. Yeah. I'd be Cookie. I'd be the guy, all the cowboys are out fighting the Indians, and I'm the guy back home making the stew. Mm-hmm. Like, that would be my job. And that's basically what this kid does. He's got no other purpose. You see in a brilliant, when one of the bugs gets into the bunker, and he is desperately trying to be a part, and they're like, "You're just a liability, Joel. Just stay here with the women." And he finally goes out and screws it up. He's
but he's not the only man that gets left behind. I think I think they're unfairly coming down on him. But he is
correct.
Somewhat irritating at the beginning of the
I thought he was instantly likable. I
liked him, but I could see how others would think he was irritating.
But I didn't get that impression, though, that they thought he was irritating. They just didn't think he was good in a fight.
He was a liability.
Right, but he thought he was. So that's why they were always trying to keep him at arm's length.
Right. Well, you saw him, practicing shooting, and he couldn't hit the broadside of he's like a stormtrooper. He couldn't hit the broadside of a bomb.
But here's the rub, is that Joel is lonely because everybody in his bunker is hooked up except for him.
Yeah. And
so he's the odd one out. He's the third wheel, or, the 15th wheel, or however many people are in the bunker.
Right.
But He has a high school girlfriend that he had one special night with, and it happened to be the night that all the chemicals started raining down on Fairfield, where the town that they're from. And he does actually speak with her on his radio because she's in another colony. She has survived herself, and he's found her. He knows where she is. They're probably, I think they said 90 miles apart.
Yeah, 86, something like that. Yeah.
She's in a beach colony, and he's underground. He decides at one point, after one especially lonely interlude, or because he is kind of narrating the film, he's the one that's bringing you through it with a voiceover, that he wants to reconnect with Amy. He's tired of being alone, and he wants to risk it all, because dying out there trying to get to Amy is better than dying alone in the bunker. Yeah. So that's what it is. It's Joel's adventure through this wasteland of giant bugs, trying to get to Amy's colony, which is 86 miles away on foot. Yeah. Life lessons are learned, skills are learned, obviously, and some other survivors are met along the way. Yep. One of which, Michael Rooker.
Yep.
Yeah. So
loved seeing him in this. And I really like the fact that, ever since Guardians of the Galaxy, because he was really, I don't know if either of you guys saw Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Yes.
Because he was kind of stereotyped after that. He was the bad guy. He was the go-to bad guy.
Well, even going into Walking Dead. You know.
Merle, Walking Dead. But thankfully, Guardians of the Galaxy really turned that around. And he is just as valuable, I think, and lovable as a good guy.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Glad to see him,
you wanted to see
more and more in those roles.
You wanted to see him, more of him in this role,
right?
To be honest with you.
So he plays Clyde, and he is traveling with a little girl by the name of Minnow. And these are my two favorite characters.
She is badass. She is she's taking no mercy. Oh, and she completely berates poor Joel. He's ill-equipped to be out there in the wild all by himself. But you talk about these monsters, and it's not in your face monster movie, but they do come up and they're fun. And they got names for them: Chumbler and Boulder Snail.
The Chumbler. I love the Chumbler.
There's you know what this is? I mean, it's a mashup between Zombieland and How to Train Your Dragon,
with a sprinkle of Harryhausen,
especially toward the end.
This is that the crab. It's a total Mysterious Island. That crab scene.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. This has really fun comedic moments. And again, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed Joel as a character. I identified with him, but it is Zombieland, right? To the voiceover, to the fact that he's creating this field guide. Then you find out by the end that this is the one thing he can contribute, which is how to deal with these things, because Hiccup and How to Train Your Dragon, all the warriors just wanted to kill the dragons. And he's like, we need to understand them. Mm-hmm. And so there's this underlying, you don't even really pick up on it at first, where he's jotting down all these little notes and these sketches in his book, and you realize that he becomes empathetic to them in a certain way, and he understands them. We just talked about Nausicaa, same thing, where she kind of understands the ohms and can communicate with them. So this works on so many levels above and beyond just a monster movie.
Well, I think that it's really carried by Dylan O'Brien, who I think he's quite charming. If he wasn't so likable, it would actually be hard to watch the movie, because he spends so much time by himself.
Yeah, he really does carry this.
With his dog.
Yeah, well, you didn't even talk about Boy yet.
Boy,
this dog was like a brilliant actor.
Can you believe it was played by two dogs?
Yeah, two dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I watched a little making of thing about it, and the dog trainer said she had never seen her dogs attach themselves to an actor the way they attach themselves to Dylan O'Brien.
Wow.
Like, he really got along with the dogs.
Yeah, it comes across. I mean, like I said,
right, it feels sincere.
You need to, because there's that one. Yeah. There's that great scene when Clyde and Minnow part ways with Joel, and the dog has to decide who he wants to go with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He sticks with Joel, and they do have a chemistry. It's weird, but the dog and Joel do have a chemistry.
Yeah. And that I think that it's important, and it feels sincere. Honestly, too, I'm very happy to see Dylan O'Brien working after the terrible, terrible accident he had on the set of the third Maze Runner movie. I don't know if you guys know.
No, that was
Yeah, so my son loved the Maze Runner books, and we watched the movies, and on the set of the third one, he was doing a stunt where he was on a harness on top of a car, and there was an accident. He was he broke the whole right side of his face. He had a concussion. He had brain damage.
Holy
what?
He was in the hospital for like 8 months recovering. They had to obviously halt the shooting.
I don't remember hearing any of that.
Wow. I mean, if you weren't into the Maze Runner series,
no, I know, but when an actor,
yeah,
gets
it was
like
a horrific accident. Like when I first heard about it, I was just wondering if he was even going to be able to, be okay again. But yeah, he came back and he ended up shooting the film. Obviously many months later, and then now it's just nice to see him working after such a terrible
that's
accident.
Amazing to hear that.
He's I think he's just quite a likable actor, and because of that, he really kind of pulls the movie along.
Yeah,
he does.
He's setting himself up for failure. From the beginning, I mean, even in the flashback with Amy when all hell's breaking loose, like you got the impression, even when he was talking with her on the radio, that she wasn't really. She's like,
"Thank you, thank you."
Don't come here.
I think the title is a little bit misleading, Love and Monsters, because the love is one-sided. That's what he needs to learn, because you're with the character and you know from the get-go that she is not as into him as he is into her, but he needs that in order to grow. He needs to realize that, and he does need to get out of where he is.
Yeah, and I will say, once he reaches her camp, it does kind of scream to a halt, because it's this kind of like buddy adventure road.
It's very
movie.
awkward, and I was upset with her because she's like, "Yeah, I had somebody special." Then tell him. Don't string him along on the radio like everything is fine.
Oh, you said you come. I didn't think
he'd actually come.
Would she feel bad? Does she feel worse if she found out he died on the way?
I can only imagine some guy like stringing along his high school girlfriend, and she shows up. "Oh yeah, I'm married with 3 kids. Sorry, I didn't want to hurt your feelings."
I have a story. A buddy who went, his girlfriend out of high school went to college in Hawaii, and he went out there to surprise her, and he was the one who was surprised because she had another relationship going. So it happens. Once he gets out to the beach colony, he falls right back into this stereotype of, you're not really contributing anything. I think the captain even says, "Oh, Amy says, you make a mean minestrone soup,
and you're good on the radio." And
you're good on the radio.
That's all she has to say about him.
Yeah. But then he stops the crab, and like you said, that is such a love letter to Harryhausen. I really enjoyed this, and again, like Christina said, Dylan O'Brien carries this movie, and if you didn't care about this character, it would just be silly. The monsters are cool. The monsters are really cool. And like I said, if you want to just boil it down to zombie land, but with monsters and not zombies.
But it's a very nice kind of lighthearted film that you can get engaged in, just for the length of the film, and I think it's probably rewatchable.
Oh, absolutely. If I didn't have to pay $20 for it every time I wanted to watch it, this is a movie that probably whenever I was flipping through and it was on, I'd continue watching it, because the monsters are cool. They're fun to look at, and
they are.
Again, boy.
Although I would think that in reality, the monsters would outnumber people. You'd see a lot more monsters.
Oh, I'd agree. Yeah.
Than you do in here, but like you were saying, some of the names, the Chumbler, the Sand Gobbler, the Queen Sand Gobbler, that he has to take out, and those leeches. That was just such a horrific scene.
But there's a very beautiful, touching scene when he goes to the hotel and he meets the robot. Mavis.
I felt so bad for Mavis. So bad. And that was the telegraph, because you see a Mavis model in his bunker.
Right. Yes.
Before he leaves.
You're right. That's and they're like, it's because it's a robot, but he has this great kind of moment with it. She goes, was bitten in half years ago by something I didn't have time to name.
This Mavis gives him the boost to make that final push to Amy's camp. Even Clyde and Minnow. Clyde, he knew what was going on. He told him at some point, you ever hear of a fool's errand? You sure this girl is worth it? He didn't even hear it. Come with us. Come to the mountains.
Yeah, that does not sound like a good idea.
So I was so happy that that's where he was headed at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and Minnow's standing at the top of the mountain, like basically breaking down all the ways he's not going to make it up the mountain.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah. And we do get a little cameo of them at the end because I immediately wrote in my notes I wanted to see more of these characters. But, leave them wanting more, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we all liked it.
Yeah. It's like just a very charming little movie.
Yes. Very pleasantly surprised by the quality of it, of the acting, of the special effects. Yeah. It is a studio level movie.
Oh yeah, no, this is not sci-fi channel monster.
It's not Netflix original or anything like that, even though they have some good ones as well. But yeah, it's very good. Very well done.
Enjoyed it. Yep.
So what kind of buckets would we give it?
Oh, I'm going to go 4 1/4.
4 1/4, really?
I'm going to go 4 1/4.
I'd go 3 1/2.
I really enjoyed this.
I'll go 3 1/2. I liked it.
This was like pretty solid for me. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I watched it on iTunes, and it was you could rent it for $19.99 or you could buy it for $24. So we just bought it because I could just tell that it was going to be something that we were going to want to watch again.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And everybody in my family enjoyed this movie.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about it, except for the fact that if someone who grew up on a dairy farm, the opening when they had the one cow in the silo, like cows can only produce milk after they give birth. So who's inseminating this thing? They can keep the milk coming. That's my only quibble. So there you go.
Yeah.
Love and Monsters. Love it.
The original title was going to be Monster Problems.
Monster Problems?
I still, even though there wasn't much love in here, I still like Love and Monsters better than Monster Problems.
Monster Problems.
That reminds me of that. What was that Chevy Chase movie where he was
Modern Problems.
Mental powers. Modern Problems. Yes.
Where he gets bathed with the nuclear waste and it comes out of slopping out of the back of the truck.
I saw the term John Hughes-esque in one thing that I read about this, and that's kind of true. Like an unrequited love kind of a thing, rather than the Molly Ringwald character. It's the John Cryer character that you're following in this movie. There you have it. Love and Monsters.
Love and Monsters.
So we are going to the concession stand, and we are going to come back. And this is such a good pairing.
This is,
Now, you didn't even see Love and Monsters before you made this connection.
I saw the preview, and I immediately thought of our second feature, Hunt for the Wilderpeople. When I was watching the preview for Love and Monsters, I was like, these two movies would go together.
Yeah, as I'm watching Hunt for the Wilderpeople, because I watched that second, like how could you have telegraphed?
No, it really that is crazy. Sometimes the kismet, man, it just flows. I mean, I was pushing Rain of Fire, which would have been a completely different pairing. But
all right, let's go to the concession and we'll come back.
He's coming. It's King Zor. King Zor, the fighting dinosaur. He's on a rampage. Aim your dinosaur gun. Quick, hit his tail. Fire! King Zor is fighting mad. He's backing up to put you off guard. He's turning toward you. Look out! He's firing missiles. Each time you hit his tail, King Zor, the dinosaur, fights back. He never gives up. Nothing stops King Zor. When he hits his tongue, he backs up and turns away, ready to fight again. There's never been a fighting dinosaur like King Zor. Get King Zor, complete with 5 missiles, 5 darts, and a dinosaur gun. Be ready for King Zor. He's ready for you.
Okay, here we are back again. Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Now, Christina, this, as we all know, is a Taika Waititi.
We know now. I never even heard of this movie until
I'd heard of it, but for one reason or other, I just never saw it. Huge fan of his What We Do in the Shadows, of course. Eagle versus Shark. I didn't even realize was his. until I did some research for this movie. I'm like, Eagle versus Shark? I saw that years ago, and I didn't even know it was Taika.
Nope.
That's before, he was a household name. In our households, anyway.
I was gonna say we mentioned his name at least twice an episode.
So I'm on board with this movie already. But Christina, this is your pick for co-features. So let us know what your thoughts are and what your history is with it.
Yeah. So I've been a fan of this movie ever since it came out. It played in Chicago, of course.
2016. This has been out for a couple years. Okay.
And when it came out on video, we bought it immediately, and I'm not lying at all. My son and I watched this movie every week for about 5 months, every week, nonstop. We love this movie.
In between your anime fixes.
Right. We'd watch some anime, and then you'd be like, do you want to watch For the Hunt for the Wilderpeople? Yes. Okay. The answer's always yes. No, it's not okay. It's yes. I will watch Hunt for the Wilderpeople. We love this movie. My whole family loves this movie. I adore this film.
It is adorable. Yeah.
And I've actually been trying to push this movie on lots of people for years.
Well, now we've got captive audience right now, so here we go.
Now you have a platform to do it. When you try to push it on people, have you been successful up to now?
Well, I tried to get a few people to watch it, and I remember one family in particular I asked to watch. So I was like, I think you would really like this. It's kind of your sense of humor, and they were completely, my friend is a vegetarian, and she was like, I didn't realize this film was so violent. And I was like, okay.
Okay. There's many things I could say to describe this movie. Violent is
but that sounds almost as successful as the time I remember recommending My Own Private Idaho to my dad when he asked me if I've seen anything good lately. And this is years ago when the thing first came out. And I went to the theater to see it, and I was so excited about it. So I said, oh, yeah, that was really good. And then when it came out on video, he remembered that I had said it was good. And he's a fireman, or he's retired now. And I remember he said he suggested it at the firehouse, and then when it came,
oh no!
I think it lasted about 20 minutes, and like, who did you say recommended this? My son?
I've got a litany of movies I've recommended over the years that have come back to bite me in the ass. So.
But I think this is completely my sense of humor. You know how when we did Top Secret, and I didn't laugh at a single joke. And I said, that's not my kind of humor. This movie is 100% my kind of humor. It's really quirky.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very clever. It's very quirky.
It's grounded in characters. So, it's not about jokes. It's sort of situationally funny because of who the characters are. But I'm just going to give a quick recap of the film. So, Ricky Baker, who's the
famous Ricky Baker.
Who's a real bad egg.
A real bad egg.
But I don't think he is. He's just misunderstood.
Well,
he is. No, but I'm saying that's how how Paula presents him at the beginning.
Paula Hall. You can't say that name without saying the whole thing. Paula Hall.
Yeah.
Paula Hall.
So played by my beautiful, perfect, glorious queen, Rachel House, who's one of my favorite performers. She's also Grandma Tala in Moana, which is my favorite character in that film.
Pick up on that, yeah.
And she is one of the more memorable things of Thor Ragnarok as well.
Oh, that's right.
And I just love her so much. But she plays a very aggressive child care services worker.
She really cares.
Who is bringing Ricky Baker, who is a kid who's basically been sort of kicked out of every foster home he's been in.
Yeah, you feel bad for this kid right up front.
Right.
And he is sort of at the end of his rope, and she flat out says, Ricky, nobody else wants you.
Damn.
And so he's brought to this place, which is really in the middle of nowhere.
Well, this all takes place in New Zealand.
Right. It takes place in New Zealand.
So you've got that kind of foreign aspect. I mean, some of the accents are a little hard to get around early on.
But Bella and Hector Faulkner are going to take him in. They're going to be his foster parents. And Bella really, really wants him. Like, she really wants to be a mom. Like, she's very sincere.
They're an older couple,
you know, and she wants to like do her best for him and like make a really good home the best she can.
Yeah.
And her husband, heck, well, he's not so into it.
He's played by Sam Neill, who's a brilliant curmudgeon.
But as the movie progresses, you realize why she wanted to take in Ricky. She took in Sam Neill's character in much the same way. So she loves to fix things and fix people.
Yeah. So, it looks at first like it's not going to work. Ricky tries to run away. He doesn't get very far. And Bella, you know, like finds him like maybe 200 meters away from the house and says, hey, why don't you come back, have breakfast, you can run away later, kind of thing. And she sort of gradually gets him to, you know, learn to love the place and them. And then tragedy strikes, which is Bella dies suddenly. And it's such a horrible scene. You see Heck just wailing over her body, like, because obviously something sudden happened. It's very shocking.
Yeah, it is shocking because it's not, you have no idea that that's coming. You're not prepared for it at all as a viewer.
And you can really see the sincerity of his grief, like in that moment. And then of course now Ricky is sort of unmoored. And then Child Services sends a letter saying that they're going to come and take Ricky back. And Ricky decides he doesn't want to go back into the system. So he tries to run away into the bush, which is this vast wilderness that's near their home. And he gets lost. Heck has to find him. And in the process, Heck breaks his foot. And because of that, they end up out there for like a month or so. And when they come back, they find out they're wanted.
Yeah, that is an interesting twist.
But I think Heck is changing his mind during that time in the bush, because Ricky is telling him, you know, because Heck's just, well, I'm going to give you back. You're going to go with another family. He's like, oh, it's not that simple. You know, I could end up in juvie. And Heck has his own prison past. So he sees something of himself in this kid, I think.
Yeah.
Right. So you can see like a little bit when the chapter called Broken Foot Camp, like where Heck
I like the way they're kind of broken up into chapters as well. I thought that was very fun.
Where Heck starts to soften towards Ricky. But really the sort of critical moment for their relationship comes when they go to that hunting hut. They're on their way back, they think, so that, you know, they can move on with their lives. And they see the notice that says that Hector Faulkner is wanted for kidnapping Ricky.
Right.
And then these three hunters come in.
And Ricky, unfortunately, paints this picture which can be taken quite the wrong way.
Yeah, no, the kid's not. The one thing we didn't really, just for the listeners' point of reference, Ricky is played by Julian Dennison, who is Russell in Deadpool 2.
I'm like, this is because when you watch Deadpool 2, I you know, as I said before, I hadn't seen Wilderpeople before this viewing. And obviously hadn't seen it when I watched Deadpool 2, but seeing him in that, you know, this kid is not a first-time actor.
No, he's got great comedic timing and he's got some serious chops. But I want to just paint a picture because he's definitely a fish out of water. He's got, you know, the Adidas and the hoodies. He's into, you know, his dog, they named him Tupac. You know, he's into rap and all this stuff, and now he's stuck out in the woods with this grumpy old man who, you know, lives off the land and, you know, is throwing boars over his shoulder.
Ricky's always talking about the Skuck's life.
The Skuck's life.
That scene in the hut is sort of like really the turning point of their relationship, because that's when they sort of work together for the first time.
But it's the turning point of the movie too, because then they're fugitives from that point on.
Right. Yeah. Now they're definitely on the run.
So they go up to the top of the hill, and that's where Heck reveals that he had been in prison for manslaughter when he was younger. And Ricky reveals that if he goes back to the foster care system, that he's going to end up in juvie. And that you can sort of really see Heck soften at that point. Like, I'm not going to send you back to that. And so now they're on the run, and Paula, who's insane, institutes like this nationwide manhunt.
Yeah, this is the other thing too, is you get this relationship between Paula and the police officer,
Andy,
and it's just it's like Keystone Cops kind of a thing.
Right. It's not helped by the story of these three hunters who are now Heck is
all right,
is
now we're definitely
now all the headlines say pervert with next to his name.
Right. Oh man, it's kind of hard to categorize this. It's not necessarily an adventure, not necessarily a comedy, but it has elements of both, right? Like if you had to describe this to somebody.
Well, it's a Taika Waititi movie.
I know, but that's shorthand for people like you and me, but not everybody. If I went outside and said, most people, my neighbors don't know who Taika.
I think there's a carry through between this and Ragnarok even, and Jojo
absolutely.
Rabbit.
He's got a very unique sensibility. And when you do see his works together, Jojo Rabbit especially, you kind of pick up on this stuff. But
I think there's a very clear parallel between this and Jojo Rabbit, because he has this very quirky sense of humor, but again, the movie's really grounded in characters, and it's grounded in the sincerity of the characters. The heart of this movie is the relationship between Heck and Ricky, and really how they grow to understand each other and to have a sincere father-son relationship that develops in a really organic way. And I love the scene when Heck explains the knack, right? A way of figuring things out without having to think too much, or more importantly, talk. And then later Ricky uses this to get back to Heck because they're separated. But yeah, it's just got has this wonderful quirky humor, like the scene when Ricky first goes into the bush and he puts the note on the barn, goodbye cruel world, right. I have burned myself to death in this barn. As you can see, you look inside.
Please look inside.
And then he didn't mean to burn the whole barn down. Unfortunately,
he didn't really think that through at all.
And then later Paula shows up and runs her finger across the paper plate he used for the head and says, "This ain't no charred foster kid." And Andy goes, "How can you tell, Paula?"
And I love when there's a standoff. They're on either side of a creek or a stream.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, I'm never going to stop. I'm like the Terminator. She said, and you're like Sarah Connor before she did the chin up.
Right. And she's trying to lure Ricky back with the trail mix.
Yes.
She's got the bag of trail mix, which later you see Andy eating. Eating it down to the dust, dumping it into his mouth. Just so many things to love about this movie.
It's a very pleasant surprise.
Because of this film, the word majestical is now in our vocabulary.
Nice.
Whenever we see a beautiful vista, we say it's majestical.
It's majestical.
Now, the other good thing about this is I love seeing them bond in their common defiance against the authorities. They're always, I love the plots and the plans that they have going so they can still maintain themselves on the run. And there's one scene that's great where Ricky is doing a little reconnaissance and he sees the soldiers coming out of the bush and he's like, "Ninjas, direwolves, child welfare." Then he's like the worst because he sees Paula.
And then there's a great cameo at the end with Rhys Darby as Psycho Sam. I of course love him as the alpha male werewolf in What We Do in the Shadows, and he's so great as Psycho Sam. It's just this total stream of consciousness kind of performance.
It's like, "Oh, I have an underground bunker." Oh no, I guess I don't. I must have dreamt that.
I forgot to say, what have I been doing with my life?
Right. Did anybody see him on when they rebooted the X-Files and he was on that one standalone episode as the Lizard Man? That's the thing. That was a really good X-Files episode, and he was so funny in it. So if you guys haven't seen that, I would recommend it.
He's always great. I love the scene too where Ricky ends up at Kahu's house because they're trying to get help for the ranger, and she's just sort of like talking and talking and talking, and then her father comes out so mellow, like so much the contrast between the way like her nonstop talking, and he's like, whoa, Ricky Baker, can I get a selfie, man?
Right.
Like,
you. Yeah, meanwhile she's like, my parents, oh yeah, they're dead. No, I'm just lying to you. I'm lying to you. No, I do that a lot.
But of course in the end, unfortunately, they are captured after an insane car chase.
Yeah, it was silly. Where
Ricky hotwires Psycho Sam's car, and that's another funny scene where Heck asks him, how did you know how to do that? And he says, the knack.
The knack.
They are chased down by like 25 police cars and like volunteers, and the one hunter is convinced that Heck is actually a molester, so he's gonna kill him, and Andy saves Heck's life because he's actually paying more attention than Paula thinks he is. And Ricky's taken away, and Heck is sent to jail because technically he's kidnapped Ricky. Ricky ends up with Kahu and her dad. And it's actually a very touching scene where he goes into his bedroom and they have a hot water bottle for him because Bella had always given him.
Yes, there was a scene early on when you realize how it affected Ricky, Bella's death, and he's hugging the hot water bottle.
Yeah. And he takes the hot water bottle with him into the woods and he tries to warm it over the fire. Yeah. But, home is where they give you a hot water bottle.
Yeah. There you go.
So it's a beautiful movie that's really like about found family and, the relationships you can make for yourself. And in the end, Heck, when he finally gets out of jail, it sounds like about a year later, because Ricky says, I had to stick it out with my family for a year. Ricky goes back and gets Heck and says, do you want to come and live with us? They need help on the farm. We can go and find that bird we saw in the woods. It doesn't seem like at first Heck is going to do that because he doesn't want to ruin Ricky's life, basically. He doesn't want to insert himself into like the happiness Ricky's found, but it turns out they do love each other. So Heck goes with them, and now they're going off on another adventure.
Right. Imagine if he didn't. It had to have ended that way.
Yeah.
They have to be together at the end of all this. And one scene I especially like is when they're finally caught at the end, and Paula Hall starts to give the Miranda rights, and she's like, that's an American thing. We don't have to say
we don't have to do that here.
And you're not police.
Yeah.
Right. Andy says to her, and you're not police. Like, because she's actually a little contemptuous of him early on, because she goes to call the police, and he's like, I'm right here. I am police.
I am the police.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I need real police.
Yikes. Ouch.
I think everybody in this movie is so well cast, even though most of the roles are, not huge. Everybody like plays their role really, really well. And I love Taika's cameo. And he says, let us pray that Jesus will make it easier to get through those doors and your bounty of delicious confectionery. So many great lines in this film. Again, like, obviously I think this is a super rewatchable film because we watched it nonstop.
Have you read the book that this is based on?
No, I have not read the book, but apparently Taika made quite a few changes, very similar to what he did with Caging Skies for Jojo Rabbit, where he sort of takes the baseline plot and then makes it a Taika Waititi movie. Yeah, it's just such a wonderful kind of touching film.
I read that they only shot this on one camera.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They only took like 5 weeks to shoot. So, and it was outdoors. in the wilderness. Like there wasn't like a lot of stage shooting here.
It was all on.
They were reliant on like the weather and all this kind of stuff. I think it's such a huge gift that Sam Neill did this because him and Julian Dennison have great chemistry.
They do. As a matter of fact, I saw there was an like one of those promotional video interviews with them, promoting a movie, and the two of them are together, and Sam Neill hands Julian the piece of paper, and he pulls it and he goes, "It was a great privilege to work with one of the most brilliant actors of our time." And then Sam Neill's like thumbs up, and then he gives him the paper back. so yeah, it looks like they definitely maintain that relationship in real life as well.
This seemed to be a hit in New Zealand. A budget of 2.5 million. It made 23 at the box office. You said it played in Chicago. I probably didn't open nationally because I don't remember seeing this local here. Was it a packed house when you saw it, being a Taika movie?
No, I mean it was before Taika was.
I was going to say this was Taika's fourth movie,
yeah.
But it was weird. But we didn't have.
What We Do in the Shadows was.
What We Do in the Shadows was well known, but like this film was not like. I mean, there was a fair amount of people there, but it wasn't like.
But still, his next movie was Ragnarok, so it's not like he was toiling away in obscurity when he made it.
No, but I think it was Ragnarok that brings a lot of people into the fold.
Well, obviously,
they go back
still.
It was funny because when Thor Ragnarok got announced and it was announced he was directing it, like we were so excited because we loved Hunt for the Wilderpeople, and I'm trying to tell people he directed this movie called Hunt for the Wilderpeople. You've got to watch it. And then a lot of people saw Ragnarok and sort of jumped on the Taika bandwagon, which is a good thing because I think he just has, just such a, again, just sort of this really unique sensibility where his stories are grounded in people. Even in Ragnarok, which is still a Marvel film, it's still like very, there's big action set pieces and all this kind of stuff. It's still grounded in the characters, and that's why I like his filmmaking, because he makes movies about people. He doesn't.
I mean, that could be a whole other episode about what he did with Ragnarok in anybody else's hands. That could have been so.
But you can't have that. We've talked about this before. You can't have that Thor without the serious Thor leading into it. You could never that could never be your first introduction to Thor.
But if you just take it on paper, all the terrible, depressing things that happen in Ragnarok, and when you watch it's not a depressing movie. Right? It's like you're still like, he lost his eye. He's this is fun.
Dad died.
But that's sort of what he, like the line that he balances in Jojo Rabbit as well, where, he's dealing with incredibly, horrific, like real world events. And he's sort of threading this needle.
Listen, after Jojo Rabbit, this guy can do no wrong in my eyes.
But Jojo Rabbit, when I saw it, reminded me so much of Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Because again, there's a line of tragedy that runs through this film. Like, this is a kid who's been, sort of kicked through the system. Nobody really cares about him. He's obviously been, negatively affected. He talks about his mom a couple of times in the film. She was obviously a teenager who gave him up. And he's like, that's terrible that there's some people who can't have babies, and then there's people who have them and don't even want them. And Heck's trying to make him feel better, and he's like, I'm sure she wanted you. She was just young and she didn't know how to raise you. And he says, no, I don't know. And then Heck says, well, you're pretty likable. There's, and obviously Bella's death is this thing that hangs over the two of them for such a long time. Ricky's actually carrying Bella's ashes for most of the film. And there's a very touching scene when he just stands there, doesn't say anything, and just presents the box of ashes to Heck. So I think, again, it's just one of the things I like about his movies. He doesn't say life is a tragedy all the time. He doesn't say life is happy all the time, like life is life. And I think that's why people are attracted to his movies.
All right, so how many buckets would we give for the Wilderpeople?
It's gonna be pretty high for Christine. I'm gonna go 4.
Yeah, I'll match you. I'll go 4.
Okay,
maybe actually 4 1/4. I would give it.
Okay, guys. It's a secret 5 bucket.
Again. You've got all these covert 5 bucket
knock
choices.
it up on us.
Here it comes.
Yeah, because you talked about Dawn of the Dead and like rarefied air and a film that you can watch over and over, and every time you watch it, it feels like a new thing to you. That is this movie.
That's
right.
Yeah, I love this movie so much. And again,
two solid recommendations this week.
Yes. And I think too, it was the Love and Monsters is filmed in Australia, and this is obviously filmed in New Zealand. But the landscapes they shoot on look very similar.
Yeah.
And obviously just, it's like a boy and his dog. And, there's an old man in a bush hat. And as soon as I saw the preview for Love and Monsters, I was like, this could work. But Love and Monsters ultimately is also about found family, because Joel realizes at the end that actually the people of his bunker really loved him, right? He has that map that they made him. And when he opens it up, he sees all the messages from them that he never saw before.
Yeah.
And he realizes like that's his family, and
he does belong somewhere, and he belongs with them. Yeah.
And that's what this is about. It's about finding the place and the people that you belong with. They ended up fitting together even better than I thought they would.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you guys liked this, because
I did enjoy it.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Taika.
And like I said, it's on Netflix, so if anybody has Netflix, you can watch it for free.
And he's got a few more that we haven't covered yet. So
yeah, we could do Boy, we could do Eagle versus Shark.
Yeah. What We Do in the Shadows. We've talked about that quite a bit. We've never covered.
And I have yet to get into the show at all.
We just watched What We Do in the Shadows like 2 weeks ago. And that film, that's a film where, like, if you own it, there's literally hours and hours of stuff that was cut out because it was such an improvised film. They had like 150 hours of film.
That's crazy.
Insane. That they had.
No wonder why they turned into a TV show.
That they had. Well, the TV show is different people.
Yeah, different cast, different characters.
But still, you have to. Okay, cool.
So this leads us next week into our Thanksgiving Monster Fest episode, our
third annual
Thanksgiving Monster Fest episode. Yeah,
double creature feature.
We're again mining those movies that we used to see on Thanksgiving weekend on our local TV stations, and we're running out of them. But there's obviously we've only scratched the surface of monster movies.
Oh, we could do Godzilla every day.
We could, but for our purposes, next week we are covering the original Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, which is the 1974 version. Now,
thank you.
Yes, it's not Terror of Mechagodzilla. It is not Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 1993.
Yeah, there's like friggin' 12 versions of this movie.
It's the original from 1974.
I just watched it yesterday.
It has King Caesar, which is a one and done kaiju.
Yeah,
but
that's
so memorable.
Unfortunately,
all the same.
I think he had a cameo in Final Wars.
Everybody had a cameo in Final Wars.
Right.
Yeah. So we're doing that, and on the other side of the spectrum, we are doing something from the Kong oeuvre, but it's not Kong. It is Mighty Joe Young, but it often used to be played on Thanksgiving along with the Kong movies because it is about a giant gorilla, and it's very similar in terms of special effects. And I haven't seen this in a very long time.
I have not seen this in quite a while.
Yeah.
Not the Charlize Theron version, right?
No, it is not. The 1949 version is the one that we are going to be watching.
1949, boy, we're digging deep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So next week, join us.
Yes,
our annual monster episode.
Yeah. Are we doing a confessional, or are we just giving up on that today?
Oh, that's right. Maybe
you were so excited to talk Godzilla.
Yeah, I know. This maybe we're so streamlined. Maybe we should skip it. Maybe we should just end it here. We do have a Thanksgiving themed confessional for you next week. So there you have it.
We're gonna say, all right, that's fine. All right, kids. Thanks as always.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.